Hey, welcome to Part Black. I'm Adolphus Pruitt.
And I'm the Reverend Darrell Gray.
Hey, and today we're going to kick off a series. It's 10-year anniversary of the death of Mike Brown out in Ferguson coming up. Ain't that right, Reverend?
That is absolutely right. And you were very polite. See, in the protest community and among progressives, who you obviously despise, we say the killing, the murder of Michael Brown Jr. I think we still... Somehow we still maintain that. The family still maintain that. We still maintain that. But anyway, it is the 10th anniversary of the death of Michael Brown Jr.
Yeah. And today we got in the studio the present chief of the city of Ferguson, Chief Charles Doyle. How you doing, Chief?
Pretty good.
You good?
Yeah, pretty good.
Hey, man, appreciate you coming in to talk a little bit about Ferguson. Let me start it off this way, Chief. You were with the St. Louis County Police Department at the time, 10 years ago,
absolutely,
when this happened. And now you're the chief of Ferguson. So just for the audience, give us some idea of how you think about this transition from because as the county was somewhat in control and command
absolutely
of the situation then, and when you were in the command position then, and now you're in the command position now, the city. So let's talk about that transition.
Yeah, absolutely, and thanks for inviting me. Obviously with the county, it's obviously a larger agency, so
right.
We had a lot more resources and assets during that time. Coming from St. Louis County and going to Ferguson, obviously a smaller police department, limited access. But you're absolutely right. The command position is similar because you still have to make those decisions that are on the ground. The fortunate thing or unfortunate thing, how you look at Ferguson, is that they didn't have multiple police chiefs since 2014. Right. I just happen to be the guy right now. Making a long story short, they gave me an offer I couldn't refuse. But actually, I was looking forward to actually coming over there to help that city out, to provide some type of leadership over there.
Got it.
Now, I think it's important, Chief. You've been a standout law enforcement official. Period. And through civil rights issues, human rights issues, civil rights protests throughout. And it's interesting. I'm with Adolphus asking that, with Ferguson being the epicenter for this modern civil rights movement, I think personally that they couldn't have picked a better person to be there, and particularly around this 10th anniversary period.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Reverend Gray. We go way back. Even doing the whole protest movement. I never in my wildest career thought I would end up being a police chief in the city of Ferguson. But again, when Ferguson reached out to me and offered me this opportunity, and I talked with the wife and the family, I'm thinking, leadership is needed over there. One of the things that I discovered when I did come to the city of Ferguson is that morale was like at an all-time low there. And most of them contributed to the federal consent decree, of course. I had to do a lot to try to change the culture, but one of those things was getting the officers to look at the federal consent decree as something different. So as I used to tell them, that the federal consent decree is just giving us mandates and guidelines on how to be a better police department. Right. It doesn't mean that you can't be the police, so to speak. These guys and gals were under the impression that the federal consent decree kept them from actually going out and enforcing the law, which is absolutely not what it is. But what I can tell you is that having this federal consent decree has put Ferguson Police Department in a position where we have some of the best policies and procedures there are in the country.
So what would you say, you've seen the police department prior to getting there as being in a command position in St. Louis County. And so you've seen how the department has changed over the years. And now that you're chief, you're moving that change. But can you give us some idea of what based on what you saw before you got there,
right,
and what you think has happened over this period of 10 years that whether it's improvement or not improvement. Just what
Right.
how has the department morphed?
Absolutely. I mean, obviously, prior to the unfortunate death of Michael Brown, I mean, the department had an image out there in regards to being a sundown town, and as most municipalities during that time had. However, since the death of Michael Brown, I can tell you this. I came there April of last year, and some of the things that I changed since I've been there was that we actually changed the whole uniforms. We changed the patches on the uniform, the badges, the way the police cars look, because what I wanted to do is get the officers away from that stigmatization from what took place in 2014.
Right.
And what most people don't know is that we only have like four to five officers remaining from the police department that was there from 2014. So essentially, Ferguson is a brand new police department.
Gotcha.
You know, I understand because the Ferguson effect. You talk about the consent decree. Ferguson is not the only police department across the country who has had to operate under a consent decree, and it's not a punishment. Out of that, did the former President Obama's 21st century policing document, which I think was fascinating and helped police departments throughout America, the relationship between the two, the Ferguson uprising, consent decree, 21st century policing document, obviously those things fit. There's a relationship.
Absolutely.
So how does that 21st century document, how does that relate to the consent decree? Or when you look at the consent decree, are you looking at one and the same, basically?
For the most part, because basically the consent decree talks about, implicit bias. It talks about proper policing, supervision, training, everything that 21st century policing mentions. I think when President Barack Obama and his team came up with that, I think it was a wake-up call for many in law enforcement and across the country. I think that I can tell you from not only locally, I was the president of NOBLE at the time,
Right.
National Organization of Black Law Enforcement Executives. The conversation was taking place nationwide in regards to maybe we are policing wrong. Maybe we should change our practices and the way we do things. So I think it was a wake-up call for everybody.
You know, that's interesting when you mentioned Noble and some of the other folks. So now that you are chief of Ferguson, have other departments been reaching out to you to try to get some ideas as relates to what you're doing in Ferguson and how you're doing it? Because I saw some recent announcement about you've been able to get your recruitment up. And the diversity, and talk about the diversity that exists now in the department, very versed on what it looked like in the past.
Unfortunately, police officers are no different than anybody else, and many of them got egos. So oftentimes, and I'll be candid with you, it's difficult for departments that's primarily Caucasian to come to a department that's minority and ask that police chief, what are you doing that's differently? Right. I can tell you this, when I started at Ferguson, we were about 49% staff there. Right now, we're hovering about 78% staff. Ferguson in 2014 had 3 African-American police officers on that police department. I have over 50% minority police officers and 23% female representation on that police department. But to answer your question, no one is reaching out to Ferguson saying, how are you guys doing it?
Well, it's interesting, too. Right after that, Pruitt, and I'm sure you both have heard the term the Ferguson effect. Mm-hmm. And I think it was Chief Dotson. They claim it was Chief Dotson that coined that phrase, but I understand it might have been another reporter from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. But anyway, what they were saying was that this Ferguson effect had an adverse effect on policing. It according to the Ferguson effect, it stated that police became apprehensive in policing based upon the scrutiny, the microscope, everything that was the microscope is on Ferguson, but it's not just on Ferguson now. Mm-hmm. The microscope is on policing, and specifically policing in minority communities. Community distrust, hostility towards police. And Dotson, back at the time, said that this Ferguson effect accounted for an increase of murder and violent crime, not just in St. Louis,
Right.
but in United States cities across the country.
Right.
And so, you think about this. Now, of course, what Dotson said, is it real or not? It's debatable, but I can understand to some degree how, like you said, a police officer might hesitate, in a way, think twice in dealing with minority communities, black and brown communities, as a result of this increased scrutiny.
Absolutely.
And that's Dotson's thing. I mean, it's in your mind, you've been a police officer for years. Is that real?
So when we talk about the Ferguson effect, again, this is what I do know. I don't know what the crime data was at that time as far as homicides or violent crime being up or down. But what I do know is that many officers across the country did step back. And I used to have this conversation with some of my officers. In years past, if you've seen a person walking down the street at 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and they was carrying a TV or a VCR or something like that, usually that officer would stop, do a pedestrian check to figure out what was going on. What I discovered is that many officers at the time wasn't doing that. And when you sit down and talk with them, their response to that was that I didn't want the confrontation. Although I thought something might have been going on, I didn't want to stop because I didn't want to be on the 5 o'clock news.
Right, gotcha.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. We got the Chief of Ferguson in the house, ladies and gentlemen, Chief Troy Doyle. We'll be right back with more on Point Black. And we are back.
Yes, we are.
We're with Chief Troy Doyle, Ferguson Police Department. Hey, Chief, let me ask you this. I've been knowing you a long time.
Yes.
Family man,
Yes.
everything. You work out in St. Louis County when you were with the county police department.
Mm-hmm.
How are the relations between police and the citizens of Ferguson now? Because we understand that all of this stems from the clashes between police and community and people
Right.
in the community. How is that now?
I would like to think that it has greatly improved, again, since 2014. I think people recognize that Ferguson Police Department has made tremendous strides since then. Again, we have changed a lot in the police department. One of the areas that we do struggle at is trying to get members of the minority communities out to attend, like community meetings and things of that nature. Ferguson is still diverse, although Ferguson is 73% now African-American population. However, we're getting to the point now where it's becoming somewhat transient, where there's a lot of rental properties where people moving in and moving out. So it's really hard to establish those, robust, neighborhood community meetings all the time.
One good thing that came out of it, maybe a few years after, this police-worn body cameras. This whole, with the U.S. Attorney General at that time believing that one of the antidotes to the Ferguson effect would be really pushing the use of body cameras.
Yes.
And that seems across the country to help, except when police turn them off. But anyway, but as far as the equipment being used, techniques being employed since Ferguson, I think that body cameras was, one big thing that police departments and activists and others really push. And the other one was just almost retraining management level police officers, making sure that at the top you had management level officers, white shirts, who now they have a priority on de-escalation. They have a priority on community policing. Because I mean, you've got to change that mindset.
Absolutely.
But if the mindset on the top is the same as the mindset with a few
Absolutely.
on the bottom,
right,
then that becomes problematic too.
Absolutely. I mean, anything, whether it's law enforcement, any industry, when you're in leadership role, what you say and what you do is how your business or your department is going to perform. And if you don't have that strong leadership at the top that's sending that message out, the officers know it and they feel it, and they're going to do, whatever the message that the leadership is giving them. In regards to body-worn cameras, I think that was one of the best things that ever happened to law enforcement because it balanced things out. I mean, there was oftentimes that people made complaints on law enforcement officers that wasn't true. So the body-worn cameras also dispelled those, but at the same time, it also brought up some things that law enforcement was doing that was wrong that should have been exposed at the same time. I've been doing this job for 35 years, and if I had to go back out on the street today, there's no way in the world I would do it without wearing a body-worn camera.
Recently, I recall that this thing about expired license plate tags was running rampant in the area, and you stepped up and said, "Listen, okay, you help me out now. It was certain days of the week you can drive with an expired tag, and certain days you couldn't. It was something like that. But I mean, how has the community responded to this dealing with these expired license tags?
Funny story about that is that when I was appointed as the police chief in the city of Ferguson, when I went for my initial meeting with the community, I was expecting for people to talk about, hey, can you help us out with burglaries, robberies, homicides, things of this nature. The chief complaint was speeding vehicles, expired plates, and things of that nature. And when I got there in Ferguson, every meeting that I attended, there was the same theme. So we had a series of accidents in Ferguson, I want to say within the first 4 months that I was there, where people were hit, were struck, and the individual left the scene. But through camera and technologies, most of them involve expired license plates or either temporary tags. So I came up with this deal with my officers. I said, I tell you what, we're going to enforce this expired temporary tag issue in the city of Ferguson. So just to bring some attention to it, we came up with this thing called Temp Tag Tuesday. That doesn't mean that we didn't enforce the law every day of the week, but we just figured Temp Tag Tuesday was a good hashtag, and it would bring attention and awareness to the situation. And the funny thing, I'm driving into work one day, and I can't remember which station. I want to say it was 100.3 The Beat, and I heard they were having a conversation about this, and some gentleman called in and said, hey, today is Temp Tag Tuesday, so don't drive through Ferguson. So I'm thinking, well, that was a good thing then. But no, that has curbed our accidents. When we started that initiative, we actually wrote more warnings than we did tickets because we didn't want it to be monetary for the city, but at the same time, we also want to send a message to the community that, if you're going to come out here in Ferguson and do business, we also want you to be legit also.
So quick follow-up to that. But did you think that by upping the enforcement of that, that it would give the citizens the impression that, they're cracking down on us and stopping us for nothing, and that's why this stuff with Mike Brown, we're going back to the old. Were you worried about, or did you get that sort of response at all?
I didn't get that. Well, let me back up a little bit. I did take some heat from some people, even from one of our state reps in regards to that. But again, as I'm explaining to you all, the purpose was never to try to get money out of the citizen. Right. It was just to bring awareness to a situation that we were dealing with out there. And as I continue to speak not only to the community but to my officers, that at the end of the day, we still have to enforce the law.
Right.
Got it.
But I think when we talk about community policing, it seems to me that that's kind of part of the whole idea of community policing. There are a lot of other crimes that need your immediate attention.
Yes.
We're living in this region. We know what the crime stats are in this region. We understand what the crime stats are in most large city geographical areas. And so, if you go back, Chief, and think about it, Adolphus, okay, the temp tags. Yes, get your tags, get all that stuff done. But there are some violent crimes. There are some crimes against property. There are some domestic abuse stuff. There's a whole lot of other stuff out there that needs your attention. And if you pulled over everybody, if you had everybody in jail, and it does go back to the Ferguson 10 years ago, the whole idea about giving a ticket to somebody who couldn't pay it in the first place, the whole idea about this debtor's prison.
Right.
And so if you do it now with the tags, are you then going to create the same environment that we saw the 10 years ago? So I think really it's smart community policing.
Not only that, but what we learned too is that the people that we did stop that had the expired temporary tags didn't have insurance either. That has an effect on you. You know, when you're driving through Ferguson, someone hit your vehicle and they don't have insurance. I mean, that's money that you got to come out of your pocket with, you know.
You know, Chief, I agree, but Darrell, if you're doing the stops, then it's not freeing up police officers for other things because you're actually doing the stops. I agree.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's not freeing up officers to
that's
do
why,
other crimes.
That's why I'm saying That's why I'm saying, listen, you got the temp tag. Listen, first of all, you already know where that car. You already know where he lives. Go to his house later on. You already know where he lives.
But I mean, get past that. But getting back to community and police relations, how do you know, you've always had, when you with St. Louis County Police Department, you always had a relationship with the community. So we know you.
Right.
How do you prepare, or have you been able to prepare your officers to emulate the sort of relationship you had with the community? I mean, how do you, and can you do that?
I can. And what I do, whenever we have a community meeting anywhere in Ferguson, I make one of our officers attend that meeting because I want them to speak at these meetings. I want the public to be able to ask them questions at the same time. One of the things that I preach to my people, and I preached this when I was in St. Louis County, we're at this point in time that we can't be pretending now. You know what I'm saying? I mean, people know, especially our community know what's real and what's not real. And I told them, you know, the whole, you know, picking up a basketball, shooting it in front of the camera, all this photo op stuff, I mean, that's great, but we have to be real now in what we do, and we have to be intentional. And that means engaging with the community and having those candid conversations, you know. You know,
and people, because we are dealing with the 10th anniversary, people need to understand that that was a long situation, Chief. I mean, we're talking about from the 9th of August up into the sometime into the end of into next year, the following year, and in that, Michael Brown was killed, 10 members of the public injured, 6 police officers injured, 321 members of the public arrested. I mean, the impact that had, and you know, it still goes back. You know, as Adolphus said, for people like us who work in civil rights, Ferguson did become ground zero for the Black Lives Matters movement. It wasn't Trayvon Martin. Trayvon Martin did not create Black Lives Matter.
I agree.
The death of Michael Brown created Black Lives Matter. And so it was interesting that Pruitt said, you know, is anybody coming back talking to you guys about it because of the national effect that it had and the things that it created locally. Right. I mean, I think the 21st century policing, obviously, I think was a result of that. But I think other police agencies in the region, Adolphus, began to take a look. I mean, maybe they weren't operating under a dissent decree, right? But I think that it did force them to take another look. You were with the county forever.
Absolutely.
So and other chiefs. I mean, you dialogue at least with local chiefs.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, how do you see that? I mean, now this is St. Louis County now, the county. We're 10 years later. Is policing better, the same, worse? Have we learned anything? Are we, you know? I mean, really, people still want to know. Yeah,
absolutely, and it's yes to a lot of those questions you just asked. I think law enforcement has improved over the years. That being said, when we still got a lot more that needs to be done. As I was alluding to before, we have to make sure that we're intentional in what we do. We can't just send officers to implicit bias training just to check the box and say, okay, now officer 10.
Right.
No, we got to send them to this training and hoping that they learn, and then the things that they learn in their class, they implement that or replicate that out in the community. So to answer your question, I think we have improved. But again, we still got a long way to go. I mean, we're constantly, looking for even better ways to engage with the community and improve, the ways that we do things.
So, how are you preparing for the upcoming anniversary?
As we just talked about, I mean, I make sure that our officers engage in the community. They stop by business districts. They're talking to our residents. We're I feel comfortable where we at as a police department. As I mentioned early on in this show, is that think about this, and this is important for the community to know. This is not the same Ferguson Police Department from 2014. Like I said, they had 3 African American police officers. We have way more than that. I mean, everything is different from 2014. That doesn't mean that you don't hold us accountable, but at the same time, also praise us too on the things that we're doing. We have implemented de-escalation training. We have implemented implicit bias training. We have adopted body-worn cameras. Give us the credit where it's due too also.
Do you have the what I call it, the equipment issue where they were getting all of the Army equipment and
I was going to
and
ask that
Humvees and do y'all
militarizing the police, the militarization of the police. I was going to ask.
Y'all still get that stuff?
I'm glad the moderate asked that question, not the progressive.
I can tell you that Ferguson doesn't get that. I can't speak for other agencies that's out there, but Ferguson doesn't receive that.
Y'all don't have any tanks, man?
No, we don't have
no
any tanks. I think the biggest thing we got is maybe a Ford Explorer, but that's about it.
Oh man,
I don't know, but you know what, Chief? You look around. There's a lot of guns there's a lot of guns out there, Doc.
There are.
There are a lot of guns out there. Folk are learning online how to take a semi-automatic and make it an automatic, and
absolutely.
And I mean, it's And listen, people ask me, I'm not anti-police. I'm not. I believe that we need to re-envision how we do policing. I'm a big proponent of that, and I think that you're the kind of person, I believe, that believes the same thing, that there has to be public safety, there has to be law and order, but can we revision what public safety looks like? And so Pruitt's right. I think that for a lot of us, what continues to stick with us is the visual. Pruitt's right. The visual of the tanks and the armored personnel carriers and all of that. And so, and that scares people.
It does.
I did grow up with Officer Friendly, Courtney. I did. I grew up with the police officer coming to the school in his uniform, because there wasn't a lot of female police officers when I grew up. But then now I'm telling my age. Watch, it wasn't. But they did. They came to the school, and I think that has to be part of when we talk about de-escalation and reinventing and all of that. I think some of it might mean going back to basics. It might not mean some futuristic, utopian thought.
Right.
But it might mean what did we used to do? We used to walk the beat.
Right.
Now, but can we not do these things now because police officers are scarce all throughout the country?
They are, but a couple points here. So when you talk about the militarization, the images that people see, and again, to my point, one of the reasons, if you remember, Ferguson back then had the powder blue shirts or whatever they were. That's triggering to some people.
Yes.
And that's one of the reasons why we did change our look at the Ferguson Police Department. As far as going back to the basics, you're absolutely right. But law enforcement has become so technical now. So the time that you're talking about, that was during the days that they didn't have laptop computers in the police cars and stuff like that. The officer can walk a beat. All he had to worry about was a radio. Right. Everything that we do now is coming on a smartphone, is coming on a laptop computer, so they have to be somewhat close to those devices in order to effectively, police the streets. Right. However, as some agencies or many agencies are doing across the country, they're coming up with dedicated community engagement teams to where those officers literally do what you're saying. They out in the community, they riding bikes, they go into the neighborhood watch meetings, and they're engaging. But it's very difficult for the officer on the street to get out there and do some of those things that we would like for them to do.
You talked about that, it's not the same Ferguson Police Department because you got a lot more diversity. A lot of new people in. You've been on the job for how long as chief?
A year and 3 months.
A year, and how many people you think came in that year and 3 months? Since you've been there, how many?
I can tell you this: prior to me coming there, no one was putting in applications to be a Ferguson police officer. Since I've been there, man, I want to say in a year span, I've probably hired 10 officers, if not more.
Okay.
We currently have 3 in the academy right now.
Okay. And the reason why I asked that because it's a new department. They're new to Ferguson. You're sort of new to Ferguson in some degree. And so from a training perspective, they are, I won't call them rookies, but they're new.
Right.
They're new to the situation. So has that caused any problems with them trying to understanding the type of policing you want to see in Ferguson, or do you just, are they a clean slate and you get to mold them the way you want?
It's absolutely the opposite. It's usually better to take the officers that come straight out of the academy and train them the way you want them, because they don't know no more. It's more difficult to take a 25-year or 30-year veteran and tell them, okay, this is how we're going to police.
So these new hires are not people from other departments.
Some of them are. Some of them are from other agencies, but the beautiful thing about that is that these people purposely reached out and said that, being that you're coming over to Ferguson, I want to come over there and be part of what you all are building over there.
Okay.
And we see, as we look at the developments, things that came out of it, and we want people to know that there were police officers during that time that were held accountable for stuff. I mean, protesters would complain. One protester told me, Adolphus said, well, we appreciate the clergy coming out, but they only came out in the daytime. Some of them stayed at night. They said, but when the clergy left, that's when things got tense. And there was a police officer that was suspended. He wasn't from Ferguson either, from St. Anne.
Yes,
that was suspended.
I remember that.
That was suspended for pointing his firearm at someone and using profanity. So the reality is that I think those things are important also to share, because when we talk about Ferguson, we've got to tell the whole story.
Absolutely.
And when people ask me, they say, well, why do you think Ferguson was so egregious? I said it wasn't just the killing of Mike Brown, Chief, but it was the way in which his body was left uncovered.
Absolutely.
In the August heat with the crowd.
Absolutely.
And I think that it was what people felt that it was just so inhumane, the way in which that was done, which has nothing, I don't know if it has anything to do with policing or not. I don't know if you're trying to protect the crime scene, preserve evidence, whatever, but just the fact that a human being. And so all of these things, I think, got discussed or continue to get discussed because people are still asking what has come out of Ferguson. Or has any good thing come out of Ferguson? I think we have to take another break.
Yep.
Go ahead, Pruitt.
No, we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more on Point Black with Chief of Ferguson, Troy Darrell. And we're back. We're in the studio. We have Chief Troy Darrell, the Chief of the Ferguson Police Department. Ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up on the 10-year anniversary of the untimely death of Michael Brown. And boy, I can't think of a better way to start this discussion off is talking with the chief and how the city of Ferguson and policing in Ferguson has changed. And ladies and gentlemen, it has changed according to the chief. Chief, has it changed?
I think so. Again, better training, better officers, better equipped officers. We're more engaged with the community. What I will tell people, challenges, come out. do a ride along with the Ferguson Police Department. You know, come up there and fill out a ride along application and ride with the officers and see what we're actually doing.
Ride along? You hear that? You hear that? They doing ride along.
I saw the movie. I ain't playing with y'all. I saw the movie. Did y'all see the movie Ride Along? I ain't riding with you.
Hey, all I know
Set
is
me up. You ain't setting me
Darrell,
up.
do they have an Uber sign in
That's
there?
what I need. Hey, I can see me now. Sitting in the back of the car. They said, "Oh, they finally got it. Lord, they finally got it." Hey, last time I rode in a police car, it wasn't a good. It wasn't a good experience. So I'm gonna pass on the ride along.
I got you. Okay.
But you're right though. I think that after that you saw a deliberate attempt, I believe, by city officials in Ferguson and around the region to do town hall meetings to have discussion on community policing. I think that as a result of Ferguson in the area, voter registration went up. I mean, there were some positive things. I think that the city deliberately, went out and said, listen, we've got to change the image. We've got to change the image, but not just, from an optical visual perspective, but, deliberately saying, what can we do? And I know you got a mayor out there now, Doc, who's a very no-nonsense mayor. She's a community person, and she's going to make sure things are done appropriately.
But Darrell, he said, but the folks ain't coming out. Now, see, and so we need to address that because let's be clear.
Yeah.
He says that as chief,
We ain't coming.
he wants the community to come out, meet the police, talk with the police, engage with the police to avoid what has happened in the past.
Absolutely.
And he's saying they won't come out. And so, Chief, how do we get them out? I mean,
They ain't coming.
Yeah, that's $1 million question, and it's in our communities it's somewhat difficult to get people to come out.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it takes something tragic or something major to be going on in the community to get people to come out. One of the things that I did do last year, I hosted an open house at the police department where we invited the community out. They did get people out, and I think what we're going to do too after August is do the exact same thing. Just kind of open the police department up, give people an opportunity to come out, meet your police officers, and just tour the police department as a whole.
And I think that what you're doing, and listen, Chief, I think it's the same as when we were organizing, civil rights organizing, and we called ourselves trying to have organizing meetings on college campuses. Folk wouldn't come.
Yes.
Folk wouldn't come to the college campuses. Now, if you have the meeting at a community center or a church,
Yes.
people were more comfortable.
Yes.
And so people are if they're not comfortable in a particular environment, and it was interesting that these were college campuses, but folk from the community, they weren't going, but if you do it somewhere else. And so I think that, as you're saying, you've got to go to where they are.
Right.
And make people more comfortable with seeing you and hearing you and talking to you. And something that Jay Greenberg said, the former special agent in charge of the FBI here, and Chief Tracy said the same thing, the reminder that police officers are human beings.
Yes.
oh, wait a minute.
I know that's
Wait a
coming
minute,
from
wait a
me.
minute.
I know coming from
Wait
me.
a minute,
I just quoted what they said to all of our listeners.
Troy,
I just quoted
Troy,
what
you
was
a
said.
robot, aren't you?
I just quoted what
Cyborg, you a cyborg.
Somebody gonna say, "Oh, Reverend Gray has changed. He's gone over to the dark side." No, and I do believe that police officers are human beings.
I don't know.
I've got friends
Cut
who are
them. Do they
police.
bleed when you cut?
I don't know. I've
Okay.
never
You never cut a policeman?
I've never cut a police officer, so I would not know. But I think that is important.
But let me ask you this, because Chief, at the end of the day, I understand that the adults are not coming out, and that's unfortunate. And I wish they did, or maybe you need to go to some of those apartment complexes and hold a little thing. But my concern more than anything else is how are your officers engaging with the youth? Mike Brown was a teenager. Let's get clear.
Yeah.
He was a teen. That was engaged with a teenager.
Right.
And I know we talked about the body laying out there, but what the body did was just provided a forum for people to gather and among themselves share what they hated about police. And then that festered into some other stuff. So how are you engaging with the youth, and how are the youth treating the police? How's that going? Is it?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, we're still at this time where everybody's still, trying to understand each other. The city of Ferguson does have what we call a Ferguson Youth Initiative, where our officers do engage with those individuals. But again, there's a lot more that we can do. One of the things I would like to do in the city of Ferguson is start a PAL program, an Explorer program. But it was difficult to do this first year because of the staffing levels. We had to get staffing levels. You can't do anything without staff. Right. So the important thing was to try to get the staffing levels up. And once we get the staffing levels up, we plan on, coming up with more programs to engage with our youth.
I know that the Brown family and Pruitt talked about it, a week or so of activities that will be taking place. And I know a lot of protesters don't necessarily engage with law enforcement, but has the family reached out regarding the activities that they're planning for the week? And if so, how has that been received? And if not, are you open to reaching out to them?
Yeah, Mike Brown Sr. has been pretty open in regards to some of the things they got coming up here as we approach the anniversary. We have been working with him and his team in regards to some different events, some parades that are coming to town. So they've been very cooperative with us.
When we came in, Darrell, you weren't here yet, but the prosecutor, Wesley Bell, Sanders County prosecutor, was leaving out as we coming in. And so that's a great segue. How are you and the prosecutor getting along?
We get along very well, Well, I don't talk to Wesley on an everyday basis, but we have a type of relationship that if I need something, I can pick up the phone and I can call, and vice versa. He's called me on occasions on a few things. So we have make it long story short, we have a decent relationship.
Got it. And my understanding, because normally if it depends on the crime that happens in Ferguson, you all have your own court system and this and that. Right. And then there's others that elevate it and they go to the county where he would actually do the investigating. Got you. Yes.
I like to believe, like I said, and it's unfortunate that it took the death of a young man. But after Ferguson, without a doubt, there's a spotlight was placed on law enforcement throughout this country. And it was a much needed spotlight. And so, kudos to all who have been involved in changing how policing is done in this country. I remember one of the Supreme Court justices, the late Justice Ginsburg, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, did an interview with a national publication, and she stated that the stop and frisk policies point to a real racial problem in the United States. And so I think that because you had it from the top down, everybody's talking about it. I think there have been some differences made.
Well, Chief, let's sort of wrap this up. What's on your mind? We wide open. The community, we want to know what's on your mind.
Again, I appreciate you all inviting me here today and giving me an opportunity to tell you the things that are going on at the Ferguson Police Department. But more importantly, I appreciate you two, especially Adolphus and Reverend Gray. We go way back, but I appreciate you. And as crazy as this sounds, being able to hold law enforcement accountable. Because if we don't have those leaders in our community that's holding law enforcement accountable, we become complacent in what we do. So we need that outside pressure at times to make sure that we're out here doing the right thing. So that being said, I appreciate you all.
No, we appreciate you being here, Chief. And let's just be clear, because there's this stigma out here that black folks don't like police. We like police. We like police. We just like police to be policed the right way. That's all, and to be fair and equitable. But outside of that, we want as police protection just like everybody else.
I try to remind people in the city that if I call 911, I want a good police officer to show up. I want one that knows to do his or her job, that's going to be respectful. And I think that's what my mama want. That's what the grandparents in our communities want. They want good public safety. And I think that at the end of the day, that's what it is. We're not anti-police. We're just pro-good police, and that's what we want for our city. And we deserve it.
I totally agree with you, and I talk to people in the community, even African Americans in our community, and that's the first thing they say. They not anti-police; they just want good policing, and that's the bottom line.
Well,
I think we all can respect that.
Well, we out of here, and ladies and gentlemen, policing in Ferguson has changed.